Breaking news from Toronto's housing market that's sending shockwaves through the entire country. Active listings have exploded by over 42%, creating a flood of homes hitting the market like we haven't seen in years. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real Canadian families who are suddenly finding their retirement savings tied up in homes they can't sell, and first-time buyers who thought they'd never get a chance finally seeing a glimmer of hope. But wait until you see what's really driving this massive surge and how it connects to the Bank of Canada's desperate moves that could change everything for millions of Canadians. But first, let me show you exactly what happened and why the housing establishment doesn't want you to know the full story. Here's the timeline that real estate insiders hoped you'd never piece together. In 2024, the Bank of Canada implemented 5 consecutive interest rate cuts, slashing rates by a massive 175 basis points from June through December. The policy rate plummeted from 5% down to 3.25% in what can only be described as panic-level monetary policy. But instead of the expected buying frenzy, something unprecedented happened. Active listings surged to a record-breaking 230,949 properties, a staggering 42.6% increase that caught even seasoned market analysts completely off guard. The Toronto Regional Real Estate Board tried to spin this as normal seasonal adjustment, but their own data tells a different story. December inventory hit 15,393 active listings, setting a new record high for any December in Toronto's modern history. Jason Mercer, TRREB's chief market analyst, admitted that many would-be first-time buyers remained on the sidelines despite the rate cuts, creating what he called an unusual market dynamic. But here's what they're not saying about why this really happened. The real reasons behind this inventory explosion go much deeper than interest rates or seasonal patterns. First, we're seeing a mass investor exodus. After years of double-digit gains, investors who bought properties as rental income vehicles are now facing negative cash flows due to rent control policies and rising property taxes. These same investors are rushing to dump their portfolios before capital gains taxes potentially increase under current federal housing policies. Second, there's a hidden demographic shift happening. Baby boomers who plan to downsize are discovering their dream retirement properties are now unaffordable, forcing them to stay in family homes they no longer need. Meanwhile, their adult children can't afford to buy these larger properties, creating a bottleneck effect that's flooding the market with oversized homes nobody can purchase. Third, the mortgage stress test is creating a phantom demand problem. Buyers who think they qualify based on current rates are discovering they actually need to qualify at much higher test rates, leaving thousands of pre-approved buyers unable to close deals. This is creating a cycle where listings pile up because qualified buyers simply don't exist at current price levels. And wait until you see how this connects to next month's rate decision that could trigger an even bigger avalanche of listings. For homeowners, this surge means your biggest asset is now sitting in a buyer's market, where properties are taking an average of 51 days to sell, up from 43 days just 1 year ago. If you bought at peak prices in 2022, you're potentially looking at losses of over $200,000 on paper. Semi-detached homes that were selling for $1.4 million at the peak are now averaging $1.09 million, representing a catastrophic wealth destruction for middle-class families who stretched to enter the market. Renters are facing a completely different reality. With condo inventory surging by 48%, rental rates are finally showing signs of stabilization in some neighborhoods. But here's the catch. The same investors fleeing the sales market are now competing with renters by staying in rental units longer, keeping rental supply artificially tight even as ownership inventory explodes. For investors, the message is crystal clear. The easy money era is over. Cap rates have compressed to levels that make rental income properties cash flow negative in most Toronto neighborhoods. Those smart enough to recognize this shift early are the ones flooding the market with listings right now. For developers and builders, this inventory surge is creating a secondary crisis. Pre-construction sales have virtually frozen because buyers can now choose from thousands of existing homes instead of waiting years for new builds. Construction financing is becoming nearly impossible to secure, and we're already seeing major projects canceled across the GTA. I spoke to a homeowner in Mississauga who said she's been trying to sell her 4-bedroom detached home for 6 months, dropping the price 3 times and still sitting with no serious offers. Meanwhile, listings in her neighborhood have doubled since last year, creating unprecedented competition for the few buyers who are actually shopping. This is the new reality across the Greater Toronto Area, where record inventory is creating opportunities for some and financial nightmares for others. Experts are predicting the next Bank of Canada announcement could trigger another wave of panic selling if rates don't drop as aggressively as the market expects. With inflation showing signs of persistence and the Canadian dollar under pressure, the central bank might be forced to pause their cutting cycle just as desperate sellers need more stimulus to attract buyers. If you found this breakdown of Toronto's housing market surge helpful, hit like and subscribe because I post daily updates tracking Canada's rapidly changing real estate landscape and economic trends. Which neighborhood do you think will see the biggest price drops next? Comment below and let me know what you're seeing in your local market.